Razabani for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. With me on Zoom today, I'm delighted to have the legend himself, Mr. Gareth A. Davies. Gareth, happy Monday. How are we?
Happy Monday. Simple as that. Bit of paddleboarding at the weekend. That was nice. The weather's changed, so it's nice to get out and do a bit of exercise. A lot of fight action at the weekend, the last 2 weekends, and feels like we're rolling again, thank God, which is fantastic.
Is the sun out where you are today?
No, it's foggy.
Typical British weather. Gets us excited for a few days and then vanishes away. Gareth, just want to go back. Obviously, like you said, there's a ton of boxing on over the course of the weekend. Let's start off with Canelo, as he's regarded as a pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. Came back into the ring after a short break from his victorious fight against Callum Smith. How did you assess Canelo being back in the ring so soon?
Well, I mean, it was a punch bag operation, wasn't it? I mean, I noticed him get hit by one straight right, a couple of fencing jabs to the body. I mean, I think Yildirim landed 5 punches in those 3 rounds, and he just got splattered. He got dismantled. It was very disappointing, his effort, frankly. Who am I to question his efforts? But it was disappointing. And he, you can honestly say he didn't put up much of a fight, if any. So Canelo got the whole, caboodle, camp, the process, the build up to the fight, and, got his mandatory out of the way. And, bing, bang, bosh, he's on to Billy Joe Saunders and his apron and his fake penis, which was very funny, I thought. Typical Billy Joe response, but I do think he's going to play those kind of crazy mind games in the build up to this with Canelo, and Canelo will just blank it all, but you can't fault Canelo. He got the job done, didn't he? I always thought it'd be a 3 to 5 round fight, and but I thought there'll be more in it, because Yildirim's normally very aggressive, very kind of physical fighter, but it was almost like someone had tied a hand behind his back. It was very, very odd, and I think his trainer did right stopping the fight after 3 rounds. He was just going to get beaten up. So banana skin out of the way in a sense, and I think we've got a very big fight on our hands.
Is this also a message to other fighters? Canelo could have easily said, well, I fought Callum Smith in December. I'm now going to fight my mandatory in May. Those are my 2 dates, May and September. But he's taken it upon himself to say, whoa, I want the big fights. I want to become the undisputed super middleweight champion. If I have a mandatory, let me fight him now. Let me get him out of the way so I can focus on my dates in September and in May and have those mega fights.
No, I think he's just in the prime of his career, and he wants to fight 4 times a year, and he's very ambitious, as you say. I think you said middleweight. He wants to unify the super middleweight division, obviously, and it's an ambition of his, and he wants to get it done by the end of the year, or maybe September if he beats Billy Joe Saunders on May the 8th. In either whatever it'll be, Miami, Dallas, or Vegas. I imagine are the 3 venues vying for it at the moment. But if Vegas isn't open, I suspect it'll be Miami again, or Dallas, where they can get a crowd of 12,000, 15,000. It is admirable. It's showing all the other guys, the top, whatever it is, 8, 10 fighters in the world who fight twice a year. If you count like Fury and Joshua and a few others. But I think because he's in the prime of his career, he wants that momentum. Activity at the moment is a big talking point for everyone. A lot of decent champions are not fighting for a year because of COVID, and they're coming back, and he doesn't want that. And I think it's a very sensible policy, and it sets the benchmark. It sets him there as, most people think he's the number 1 pound for pound in the world. It sets him there as the number 1 boxer in the world by doing that, and when you think that, people like Sugar Ray Robinson would have, I'm talking the 50s and 60s here, and obviously it was different then, but where they would have sometimes 4 fights in 2 months. The world's different now, of course, but it is. You have to admire him for doing that, and there's a great desire there. But I think he's got that momentum, and he enjoys the activity. Doesn't want to be out of camp very much, and he's in the prime of his life. End of.
You talk about momentum. Billy Joe Saunders hasn't been the most active fighter himself. He fought last year once Martin Murray. I think the year before he fought on a YouTube undercard, which wasn't a great performance as well. I believe
I was there. KSI Logan Paul. Yeah.
That's right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember watching an interview, Tyson Fury. I think it was on your channel with yourself, where Tyson said he wants to see Billy Joe have another 1 or 2 fights before he gets in with Canelo. But is it with Canelo that when you have the opportunity, you have to fight him because you just don't know if you're going to get that date again?
Yeah, I asked Billy that myself, and he said, no, I'm not going to risk getting a cut eye or, something that keeps me out or an injury. I'm not going to have a fight in the interim. That's it. The Martin Murray fight in December and this fight now in May the 8th. So that's what we're going to get. He's in camp, isn't he? We saw him out in sunny climes in his apron, and that's where he's probably going to be till, I would say, probably middle of April now, and then he'll go to America. And he looks in good shape as well. That's the great thing. Looks in great shape. I'm sure he's getting decent sparring partners in. And, it's a fascinating fight for both men. This could be I think it's the most challenging fight Billy Joe Saunders will ever had, certainly since Chris Eubank, since Eubank fought him in London, all those years ago. And for Canelo, it's an enigmatic opponent who is very good at moving, who changes levels, who is in there for a boxing match. I still think Canelo's favorite, but it could be a spectacular performance. It needs to be the kind of performance that Billy put on against David Lemieux in Canada. And he needs to be elusive, and he needs to counter, and he needs to land, and needs to win rounds, and he needs to get Canelo's respect. A lot of people will say that he doesn't hit hard enough in general to get that respect, but he'll be working on a game plan. He knows the sport inside out. He's very comfortable in the office. So it sets up for a fascinating fight. And I think, if Billy does achieve the improbable, and I think it is improbable that he wins, I don't think he stops Canelo. I think, we're looking at a 12-round fight. He's got to win 8 of those 12 rounds convincingly, and also, how's he going to be against? He'll probably never been as hit as hard as Canelo will hit him. So, and we know Canelo targets the body, but Billy's southpaw as well, which is an advantage to him. It's a fascinating duel, basically. And if Billy wins it, it will go down as the greatest victory by a Briton abroad, and one of the great British fighter victories, because the guy is number 1 at the moment. 57 fights and only a defeat to Mayweather. I was there that night, and he was a young, raw, aggressive, bullish fighter, which he still is, but he's got that defensive nous as well now. He looks levels above people. He looked levels above Callum, who was admirable against him, Callum Smith, but he just looks too good. This is the one to show. Billy could be the perfect canvas for Canelo to show his boxing skills.
A lot of people are looking back at the Alexandre Lara fight where Canelo had a close decision win. He was asked about that at the post-fight press conference, and he said, that was 7 years ago. I am a completely different fighter. So is it fair to say you should put that fight aside because it was 7 years ago? Canelo has dramatically changed a lot as well.
I just lost you then.
I said because it was 7 years ago, Canelo has certainly improved majorly as a fighter.
Completely different fighter now. Completely different. I mean, I was at that Lara fight, Canelo and Lara, and it was close. But Lara was, he did that thing that Lara does against big punchers. He circled all night. He didn't, yes, he countered, and yes, he's very fleet of foot and clever. you know, we could find a similar fight with Billy Joe, that Billy's not being beaten up, but he's not able to get his shots off. Billy's got to throw in combinations. He's got to throw combinations and land and get away. And that'll be the key to victory for me, you know. But yeah, the Lara fight was close, but he is a different fighter. He's developed in extraordinarily, you know. We saw that against Callum Smith. We didn't see it on Saturday night, but we definitely saw it against Callum Smith. You know, the two Golovkin fights, and I believe he lost the first Golovkin fight, and I do think he nicked the second Golovkin fight. We saw it in that first Golovkin fight that he got hurt 5-6 rounds in, got on his bike for a couple of rounds. He's still terrifically brave. But that was a massive learning fight for him. And he's been different since then. He's been different since the first Golovkin fight because he knows he got away with it. He must know he got away with it that night, you know. So, you know.
After the Callum fight, he obviously took a week off, straight back into camp. I'm not sure how much time he's going to take off now, maybe a week or a maximum of 2 weeks. But back to camps, could that play into Billy's favour?
I don't think so. I think Canelo, you can see, loves it. You know, as does Eddie Hearn, love aping him now in his Dolce & Gabbana pajamas, which is one of the highlights of my week, watching Eddie dress up all week. He looked like he was in a safari suit on Saturday night, a white safari suit, and his Dolce & Gabbana pajamas through the week. You know, I cannot wait to see him and give him a good ribbing over that, you know. Like, you know, the George Michael look on the way in. I don't know, it's funny. Eddie pulled it off as only Eddie can, to be honest.
Gareth, it's well written that Canelo had problems with Golden Boy and Oscar de la Hoya, but does he seem to you now like he's such more of he's a happier fighter? He's got a smile on his face. He loves doing the media. He loves interacting.
He's more comfortable speaking a little bit of English. I think he's resonating under the umbrella of being more of a global star. You know, he's mature, but he's got his control over his own career. That's the thing. He's not negotiating through his promoter, Oscar de la Hoya or Golden Boy Promotions now. He's in control of his own destiny. So I think that's what that 4 fights a year is about as well. I'm going to do it how I want to do it, you know, and good on him. I think he's a great advert for the sport. I know people, you know, say about the 2 positive drug tests and that, you know, that he's tainted. And in a sense, he is because of those. But, you know, that's by the by now, in the sense that that's gone. That's a couple of years ago. And I think we just got to appreciate him for what he is.
No, absolutely.
Which is the number one in the world.
No, absolutely. And just the final one, Canelo, by the time he retires, by the time his legacy has been completed, does he go down as one of the greatest or the greatest Mexican fighter to take part in the sport?
Well, the greatest Mexican is a really tough thing because there have been so many great fighters from Mexico, you know, but he's there amongst the modern greats. I mean, you know, you look at people like Julio Cesar Chavez, what an extraordinary career he had. And I think he's the greatest myself. But, you know, having covered Barrera fights and Morales and Juan Manuel Marquez and some of these guys, I mean, they are extraordinary. And then you go back in time and there's obviously Mexico is, you know, boxing's the national sport. So, but yeah, he is one of the greats already. I mean, he's already achieved some kind of greatness, but if he can have another couple of fights at light heavy, I know he's not intending to at the moment, unify the super middleweight division, and then build from there. I mean, really, I mean, you know, the achievement's extraordinary for someone that turned pro at 15 and the 7th of 7 brothers who all box professionally. It's unbelievable, you know, it's unbelievable.
No, absolutely. Gareth, I'm not sure if you watched one of the fights on the undercards, the heavyweight with Zhang and Forrest. Eddie Hearn throughout the week spoke about Zhang potentially being an opponent for Anthony Joshua and having this mega fight in China. We saw Zhang's performance. He knocked down Forrest, I think, each time in the first 3 rounds, but then Forrest went on to win majority of the fight. Is that now out of the is that on the side now?
Yeah. It was trumpeted and the fanfare wasn't justified. Yeah, I think he ended up in hospital as well, actually. I hope he's all right. He was hospitalized after the fight. I think it was probably precautionary checks. But no, I mean, I get what Eddie was doing, which was, let's use this great Chinese fighter for a launch pad for a fight in China. I mean, God, you only need to get 1% of whatever it is, 2.5 billion population watching the fight. And like, is that 250 million or something? I don't know what my maths is like, but it might be 25 million, but it'll be the biggest pay-per-view in history. That's what Eddie's thinking. Ka-ching, ka-ching. So that didn't, that didn't pay off for Pajama Man, did it?
Another heavyweight fight we saw early hours of the morning. Joseph Parker returned back into the ring after about a year out, roughly about a year out. I think he was out last in February, just before the pandemic, against Junior Fars, somebody he knew very well from the amateurs. I believe they had 4 or 5 fights.
Two. If they had 4, it was 2 each.
That's right. How did you assess the performance from Joseph?
Joseph fights how, we know what he's like. Again, he's a very he controls the space between him and his opponent very well. I mean, his most exciting fight was Dillian Whyte, and it was really exciting. And if you remember Cortezone or whatever the referee's name was, when he fought Anthony Joshua, didn't let them engage very much, did he? And we only got a bit of engagement in about the 10th and 11th rounds in that fight, because I think someone would have landed if the referee had let them that night. But I think Parker got through it. It was a potential banana skin. He's clearly fought the better opposition. He's fought at a higher level. Even though Farr is the guy that had represented New Zealand more as an international amateur. But it was an awkward clash of styles, and I spoke to Dillian and Derek Chisora on Saturday night, and they were both saying the same, that well Dillian doesn't think Joseph Parker's the same boxer that he was. He would say that, of course, because they had a life and death last few rounds, didn't they? It was unbelievable, that fight. It was very, very exciting. You were probably there that night. It was very, very exciting. But I think Parker steps up when the opponent forces him to, and I think Derek Chisora was kinder to him, and I agree with Derek that he hadn't, like you say, been out for a while, and there was a bit of ring rust there, but he got through it comfortably. One of the scorecards, 119, 109, was a bit wide, maybe, but he won the fight, and Derek was saying that I want the fight in 8 weeks' time with him. Let's get Parker over here. I want to fight. And I think Derek's wise to start blowing that trumpet, because there's no point waiting for crowds to come back now. And that's the point he was making. And he's so right. Have your fight. Just have the fight. Take a little bit of a cut. Be active. So I don't think it'll happen in 8 weeks' time, but I think we'll see Parker coming over here, and I think it'll probably be in May, earliest May. But it's great because Parker's got a following with the British public. We love him over here. He's great to deal with, isn't he? And I think him and Chisora is the fight that needs to happen. The fight he hasn't had with a British heavyweight.
Definitely a very, very fun fight. Well, we look forward to the news and see if that fight does take place in May or June later this year. Gareth, thank you so much for giving me a little bit of time this Monday morning. I appreciate it. And let's look forward to some great nights of boxing now as we go back to a little bit of normality over the coming weeks and months. And I'm sure we'll be catching up with you very soon.
Always great to see you, Raza. Thanks very much, bud.
Gareth A. Davies, IFL TV, thank you very much.